Man, that room looks amazing. Those tangential modes never stood a chance with those soffit bass traps. Clear diffuser on the back wall? That's a cool idea.
Wow.
Oh, hey, there's Rod.
We're supposed to start at 2. I don't know where Gavin is. Where is he?
Is he talking to me?
Is he coming?
So sorry, Rod.
Oh.
I was busy doing something.
There he is.
Good to see you.
Thought you weren't coming.
So we're here with Rod MacKenzie. Thanks so much for having us back in your studio. It's so beautiful. Like, it turned out just amazing. So
I couldn't be happier with it.
that's
Beautiful.
awesome. So let's first talk about what the vision was for this space. You know, you had a dream of what you wanted here in your basement, and how did that all start?
Well, it started out because we had a pool table here in this room. That was all that was in the room.
Yeah.
So we played a few games of pool, and then it just became clutter. So I was looking for an office, a kind of music studio, somewhere that I could come down and just kind of hang out, play a lot of music, listen to a lot of music, and not piss everybody else off in the house with a noise. So I called up the good people at Sweetwater, and they pointed me in your direction, and they pointed me towards All Pro, and that's how it all kicked off.
Yeah, I remember getting the call from Mark Salamoni at Sweetwater Integration, and he said that he's got a cool project in mind, and it was just kind of a perfect fit. It seemed like the team really came together nicely, not only us, but then also your contractors and electricians, and everybody just came together, you know, with one vision for this space, which was pretty
We were
fun.
very lucky that way. We got the contractor who actually built the house in the first place over 20 years ago, and his family were involved. He brought in a wonderful electrician called Mike, who did a fantastic job. And actually, the electronics, the electrics in this place are about as beautiful as anything that's in this room.
True.
So yes, we had a great team. It's amazing to me actually how many people were involved in the project.
This is Jason DeChristopher, the designer on the project, and wanted to talk through a few different elements here in the room, because when you first look at this space, it looks like it's just a bunch of drywall potentially, but there's so much that goes on behind the fabric. This is all white fabric that is stretched on the walls. There's a soffit bass trap that goes around the perimeter of the room that helps us with room modes and making sure that the low end is consistent in the space. We have these ceiling clouds that hang down to help with first reflection points and also help with some room mode issues. Even down to what looks just like artwork, but back here on the back wall, we've got the clear diffuser that's covering up the artwork that's there. So we get the scattering that we want so that it doesn't sound, you know, too dry or too dead in the space. But then also we get the visual that we want as well. So a lot of neat elements in here. All the walls are at least 4 inches thick of treatment. And what I really like is that it helps you hide some of the wiring.
Yes, there's a lot of wiring in here.
Yeah.
A lot of wiring. So this was truly a fun project. It's a dream, and my favorite part was when someone said, or Rod mentioned, can we do built-ins with amps?
Yes.
And I've always wanted to do that, so we got to do that here. We'll get into that. But yeah, what I do on the project is a lot of the technical stuff that most people don't find fun and exciting, but the conduit, the power, the heat loads, electrical loads, to make sure that it operates smoothly, the studio. So to your point, there is a lot of wiring happening in the space to interconnect the whole space. A lot of conduit, metal conduit throughout the wall to prevent EMI interference, proper grounding as well too. And we also had to get the wires to the desks. That was quite a project we get into, talk about that. But a lot of this ties together into a rack that's located outside this room, central rack, that ties the whole system together.
So the artwork is such a central part of this room.
Yeah.
Who was it that did the artwork?
Well, my nephew's wife is an artist, and so I approached her and asked her if she would do a couple of pieces. I know she works in abstract, and it was probably the biggest piece of art I think she'd made to that time. If anyone's interested in her, she goes by the handle The Lazy Redhead. She has a YouTube channel if you want to look at what she does.
Yeah.
But I commissioned those, and she painted them. Actually, on her YouTube channel, she filmed it live while she was making these paintings. And she did one on the back wall and she did one on the side wall. And to me, they really make the room.
Yeah.
They're just spectacular, and they create the right energy for being in this room and feeling creative.
Yeah, I remember early on some of the inspiration for this room. You really liked the studio that we did for David Crowder.
Yes.
And some of the kind of all-white aesthetic, and he has a clear diffuser with artwork behind it. And you had originally sent the image of what she was painting, and we dropped that into the rendering so you could actually see how it looked in the room. And I feel like that was the final piece to really draw the room together.
It was, and we did take inspiration, by which I mean we completely ripped off many of the things that David Crowder had done in his studio, which is gorgeous. We didn't go quite the full white aesthetic, as you can see from the couch, but that was definitely the inspiration.
Yeah, well, and I love that too, because some of the studios that we've done years ago are starting to inspire people to make their own spaces, and it's literally our mission statement for our business is we create rooms that inspire, and so it's exactly what happened here. You saw that and you wanted to emulate some of those things, and when you have an aesthetic like this where it's mostly white, it makes the LEDs just really shine, and you can get so much more variance than you would if you had a dark room.
That's right. I mean, a lot of the time in here I have it on the whitest setting because I use it also as an office. So I also do a lot of Zoom calls, and I can't be seen if I don't have the full light on, but there are many other times when you just want a much more gentle kind of vibe in the room, and so we can basically dial up any color or any combination of colors that the mood takes you when you walk in.
And one of Rod's main requests was, I want it to be simple to use. I don't want it to be complicated, and that's kind of what we did here, including the guitar amps, as well as the turntable and the CD player and the DVD player, which also plays PAL. Yeah, that was a little bit of a interesting project to get that working, but we got it. We have his PAL DVDs playing here, and then also a custom desk.
Yeah, I knew that was a big part of it, because when we got some initial conversation with Rod, he really loved Crowder's studio, and in particular the desk that Crowder has, because there's a lot of elements of that just like this space, Crowder wanted his space to be always on and just easy, you know, because the moment that you have to struggle to get something mic'd up or to get something patched in, the inspiration's gone. And so, talk a little bit about the desk.
So I remember we brought up Crowder, and you were just double checking to make sure, hey, is it okay if we use a similar design, and you got us the prints, and like yourself, you know, I think I was working with Oscar with the 3D renderings, and I worked on a 3D rendering. I used some of his stuff for the room, and then I built a 3D rendering and sketch of the desk, because we want to see what this is going to look like. And we did some changes. We changed the rack equipment to this side, and also there's a cool little feature with this desk, like Crowder's, where the pedal board is at.
Yes.
So we moved it to the left side of the desk because of Rod moving this direction with his guitar head. So
it's awesome.
So that turned out really nice with this, and then it gets hidden really easily.
And all that gets routed to any one of the amps in the room?
Yeah. So on this unit here, we take a look at the rack. We went and used the Radial GX44, it's a 4-channel matrix switcher, for the 4 amps that are in the room. And this allows Rod to easily, from his touch panel, take his input and send it to any of the 4 amps, or multiple amps at the same time, without even getting up out of the chair. And so the GX44 also runs an effects loop to his pedal board here as well.
Yeah.
So, and we can do from one head to another cabinet.
Yes, a lot of options. That was another thing we talked about, was being creative in the analog world versus in the box. So allowing him to take the Fender head and run into the Vox speaker, and vice versa. And we actually did that over here with a Delisle unit. It's a 3-channel unit. It lets us take the head amp and go to any of the speakers. And the little icing on the cake here is it also is tied into the UA aux as an attenuator. So we can actually bring the attenuator in and lower the volume of the amps, so he's not going deaf down here. So that provided a lot of analog solutions for him to be like hands-on with the equipment. Yeah. And we've been having a fun time experimenting with it, getting some different tones.
What do you use the room for the most? I know you're a guitar player, so you have some beautiful amps in here and guitars.
Well, the concept with the guitars was when you get inspired, not to have to spend the next hour and a half setting things up. So everything's set up where I can access all the different amps, all the guitars, and just literally plug in and play. So that's part of what we use the room for. A lot of it is listening to music as well, and I use it as an office, so I hold a lot of video calls.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, people on the calls constantly ask me about my virtual background because they don't believe it's real, so I have to get out of the chair and go back and show them that actually this is a real room.
Take a guitar off the wall and make sure that it's real. That's awesome.
Yeah, so they're the main uses right now.
Yeah, and you have a vinyl turntable set up as well in here to listen to music, which is after my own heart. I'm a vinyl collector, so.
Well, I'm getting back into vinyl, and part of the fun of this is going to be collecting again.
Yeah.
After stopping doing that probably when I was about 20.
I remember actually one of the first Zoom calls that we had, I noticed, I think there was a Sex Pistols album on the in your bookshelf in the back, which I think is right over there.
Yes.
And I like how you added some of those elements in here, like even the old Mac computer here that was in your office when we first talked. So.
Well, I'm trying very hard to keep this uncluttered.
Yes.
And so I have another room which is completely filled with clutter. But there are certain pieces that I think have an important part in my history that I want to bring in and just dot around.
What other aspects of the desk were a little unique?
He had a request to do continue his work here, do Zoom calls here, meetings, as well as music. And there was a request to be able to lay things out, so a lot of space. So we went back and forth with the height of the desk, and then we had a keyboard also in here we had to be conscious of. And so this is a really cool, sturdy keyboard tray with really tight tolerances to bring this out, but still allow him to get his legs underneath the keyboard here. So that was a unique challenge to get just the right height to make everything fit. And I remember we were on the phone with a tape measure, you were measuring your knee to the floor and making sure everything was just the right height.
And to be able to sit on that chair with that out and look up and still see the video.
Correct, right. Yeah, so in the SketchUp file, I would place the viewing angle here, and we were replacing monitors and camera and screens just to make sure the viewing angle is proper for the TV and everything else that's happening in the space.
And don't forget the handles and the drawers.
Yeah, Rod, you want to talk about the handles?
Yeah, this is a cool detail.
Because these drawers had to be, the whole desk had to be made bespoke, we had the opportunity to play around with the handles. So I ripped off shamelessly this idea from Joe Bonamassa, who has these in his kitchen somewhere. So these are, Gibson bridges that we put on. And they work pretty well as handles, actually.
Yeah. So how did you end up getting into music? Because I know that wasn't your career wasn't music, but now you're able to make that more of a hobby.
Well, my first memory, actually one of my earliest memories, is listening to "She Loves You" by the Beatles in my dad's car. He wasn't a big Beatles fan. He was more from an earlier generation, so we had a lot of Marty Robbins and Elvis and things like that in the house. But although I did have a guitar when I was about 10, music kind of took a backseat because I was into sports in a big way. I played rugby and I played a lot of cricket. And I was an outdoor kind of person all my teenage years. And then my career took over and I was very, very busy. And it sort of kindled about 2000 when I bought a Les Paul.
Yeah.
Because like everyone else, I had the Jimmy Page poster on the wall. And so, a big Cherry Burst Les Paul was always in my future. Not that I have it now, I've changed it. But that was when I started to get back into thinking about playing the guitar. But like so many people, it was catalyzed by YouTube, online tuition, and then of course the lockdown with COVID when I could take it even more seriously.
Right.
And it's not just playing them. I think guitars are absolutely beautiful pieces of art, and they're inspiring even before you hear anything that comes out of them. So I'm also partly a collector as well, and my hope is that I can curate a collection of guitars over the years that are something really to be proud of. Yeah, so all the way through the project, when we were talking about gear, I was in contact with Louis down at Sweetwater, who's looked after me now so beautifully for a while. And any question I had about gear, amps, or anything actually, he was the man, and worked seamlessly with the integration of the entire project.
We're integrating a turntable, DVD player, CD player, some other aspects here. And so we use Q-Sys, the Q-Sys system in the main rack with the Q-Sys touch panel. And we also have lighting too. So the Q-Sys touch panel lets us turn it off and on. It lets us control video inputs and outputs, as well as the audio volume levels for the CD player, the TV, and even the computer audio as well. Yeah. So it really is the main control here for the system. So, and also we worked with electrical contractor Michael, who did a phenomenal job with the lighting to make all this work. So we have a bunch of LED tape strip throughout the clouds, the soffit, as well as some white downlighting too. And what is the coolest is the feature in the artwork, LED tape within the molding here, lighting up the artwork. So pretty amazing the way this turned out.
Well, and I know that there was obviously a ton of wiring that went into this, and Zane from Jumpers was a big help with that. Yeah,
Zane's great. We love working with him. And so this project here, white walls, everything's white, and we said let's try white plates. You know, not very common. And we could take a look at the one back here in the corner.
Yeah, looks great.
We did white plate, black text. So he did that, and he sent us some pictures, and it looked phenomenal. So there's other plates throughout the room, behind the amps, and in the built-ins, and in the rack, and those just came out really nice. So really proud of those. He did a great job. That's
awesome. Yeah, we definitely wanted to have as many places where you could route audio, so that you never know what you're going to do in the future, you know. And
so with the Q-Sys system, we're using Dante to do a lot of routing in the space, as well as for future expansion. If we get a band down here or a drummer comes in, we do have a room next door, a theater, with a Dante tie that we could put a drummer in there and some mic pre's and a headphone amp. So there's some expansion available here for the future.
I remember early on when we started this project, there's two goals. One, obviously it needed to be a comfortable, nice sounding space for you to be in. But one of the other things was to isolate it well, because this is in the basement of your home. Want to make sure that we're not disturbing other people in the house. And obviously that takes a lot of effort, you know, with the amount of construction that goes into it. Was that something that you were expecting, or was that a surprise with how much that it has to
Well, I wasn't really expecting how much we'd go into it, because I didn't know much about it. So when you guys did the acoustic design, it was fascinating to me how you thought about it, the positioning of everything, the bass trapping, the importance of that, and how you insulate the room. And even the air conditioning. We are in a bizarre place where I have to cool the room down and also heat it at the same time from the floor. So that was fascinating to me, because I didn't know anything about that area at all. But I always remember the first time you came here to check it, and I was upstairs, and you were playing at least 95 decibel music down here. And if I listened super carefully upstairs, I could barely hear the bass. And it was very validating. So I'm still on a journey with that. You know, when I listen to really loud music in here, I usually make sure there's no one in the house, even now.
Even then, right.
But over time, I've become much more confident that it's really remarkable what can be going on in here, and 6 or 8 feet away. Nothing.
Well, and not only were we worried about disturbing other people, but then there's also quite a bit of loud mechanical noise that's happening right on the other side of the wall, and some electrical noise too, and just making sure it was something that when you came in here, it just felt like a sanctuary, just something that you can escape all of that. So
it's highly noticeable when you walk in the room how peaceful it is. I think we don't really notice a lot of the ambient noise that we live with every day. But when we walk in here, it's a calming feeling right away. And it's impossible for me to believe that just through one of the walls is a huge furnace that's constantly on in the winter. So can't hear any of it.
That's great.
It's a fantastic job you guys did.
Let's talk a little bit about positioning the speakers. And what that took to make happen.
For Zoom calls and meetings, a basic speaker gets by, but we also want to be able to do recording and also a listening position for records.
Yeah.
So I had to accommodate a lot of things here. So as well as look cool, you know? So we went through a few different speakers and we found the Dyna Audios here, three-way speaker in white. And it looked really good in the renderings, the way it came across. And, you know, I remember Rod asking me, like, you know, what are your thoughts on these speakers, how they can perform? I said, I looked at the specs, they're gonna do great. It's a three-way speaker, great, you know, no distortion, everything in phase. We do have a sub with it as well too. But the main things, we need a speaker that will perform well, that in the mid-mix position, as well as at the couch.
Yeah.
And it does. So there's no bass build up here because of the bass trapping. And you still have a good stereo center image in the front here. So they worked really well. The one change we made was they originally were back a little bit. As we started placing the monitors, we had to bring them forward. So we used the sound anchor stands and kind of reflip them to get them over the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love the trick of putting little weight
we put some weights
top of
to
it
counterweight it, and that worked out really well in the back there.
So I think that having the contractor that built your house was a really important part of this step, because he knew the ins and outs of everything in here. And Lino was just awesome to work with too. He had a really good attention to detail, asked a lot of questions. So it was fun working with him.
He's a terrific guy. He is absolutely obsessed with detail, and even more than me. And, you know, he is the kind of guy who wants to know that it's just as beautiful behind the boarding as it is in front. And so he has an ownership feeling about this house, because he was the general contractor when it was built. And also when I called him to ask him if he'd be interested in doing this, I wasn't sure how he'd react, because I guess they don't do that kind of thing every day. But he jumped at it, because it would be something that he could learn things by doing. And he loved it. It's been a labor of love. He's been responsible for a lot of the very small touches that make the difference, like some of the handles we have on the doors, and just a great guy to work with. And his whole family, who he has sons that he works with, who've also been very important in this project.
I really enjoyed, I always just had a positive attitude about it too. Like, even though there's some challenging things that go on in building a studio, he just would always, you know, come with great questions and kind of like, I'll just get it done. I'll make it happen. So
yeah, he's a can-do guy.
One of the aspects of the desks in a studio is cable management and wire management. So as we're building this in SketchUp, we don't have cable pathways to easily install the cable, as well as future expansion. The furniture maker did a great job adding this little feature where this pops down, and all our cables run back and forth across the central location here. We also have the two sides that open up back here that allow us to get behind the equipment and have a little more space for storing cables. So we're trying to think of the future here and any, you know, adding any additions to the desk. Another aspect of the desk was keeping all the cables hidden. So we actually this is a concrete floor with hydronic heating inside of it. So we had to mill the concrete down just low enough so we didn't hit the pipes, so we could get the cables to come underneath this floor. So there's a number of CAT cables and audio cables and video cables that come underneath this floor and up into the desk. And we'll see that in the room behind us where the trough is with the cables.
That's awesome. Also, like, after all the construction was done, then we had Matt Collin Simplified Acoustics come in and do the interior acoustics of the space. So all the bass trapping and the clouds and adding this diffuser that's behind me. I mean, there's a lot of details that go along with that, because when you walk into this room, to the layperson, you might just think that it's drywall walls everywhere, but it's all this white is fabric.
Yes. That was also news to me. And what is amazing is the amount of detail that goes into the planning of it. And people would be shocked, I think. It's beautiful when you see it now, but the amount of detail, even just to create the space for these diffusers and the light system that's involved, as well as shipping the art halfway across the world, and having it made in the first place. So it's all worth it when you come in and you see it. Along the way, though, it can sometimes feel,
it's a daunting
it's complicated,
task.
Absolutely.
One area that we had talked about with this space was doing podcasting for Rod for the future with his music. So we went with the Blackmagic device here. And this pulls out and allows him to simply select his camera, or any of their media sources, and then stream out or record and do editing at his computer here. So below the Blackmagic, we have the Focusrite interface. And this again is using Dante to route devices like the CD player and the turntable to the system, as well as the Acoustic system. And then below that, we have our SSL preamp, 8-channel preamp. This is great. This actually is the preamp for our ribbon microphones on our guitar amps. And we went with the SE ribbon microphone for all the guitar amps. On top of the desk, we have the SSL DAW controllers. And we actually went with the mix-end wooden pieces here, which turned out really nice. And we kept them all separate. We were going to do one unit, but we kept them separate to give Rod some flexibility to move these around as he's using them.
Okay, so this room itself is kind of sitting in the middle of the basement. There's a hallway that kind of works around the perimeter of it that could be used for storage and other things, but
Sure.
it also is where the lighting controls landed. So we'll go check that out because it's obviously a big part of this space. Okay, so back here we have a lot of electrical runs and things. It's just, I love how tidy it is. Like everything
Very
is just
clean. They did a
real
great
clean.
job. Yeah, we have metal conduit running to the trough, and then from the trough it runs down. And again, here's where our cable comes into the floor and then out to the desk.
Yep.
So it's our central trough, low voltage cabling.
Yeah. And further down here is where a lot of the LED controls are, right?
Yeah, this is all, the lighting was quite a project here, and he did a great job, super clean with all the tape strips, all the downlighting. You can see here, really clean work. And this all ties into the Acoustic system, all the lighting.
Okay.
So this is the central equipment rack room. Rod already had 2 racks full of equipment for his movie theater and for the rest of the house. We added a 3rd rack for his studio. And in here again is our Acoustic system, a network switch, as well as some video conversion.
And a lot of, this is that mechanical room that I was talking about where there's just so much noise that happens right here, but when you're in the space, you don't hear it at all. Which
Goes
is,
away, yeah.
Yeah. So when we do these studios, we're always putting together like 3D photorealistic renderings of the space. And for us, it's just a way to get our ideas out so you can see them and then give feedback. And, and I remember you telling me early on, what was the rock analogy that you had?
You'll bring me a rock and I'll say, no, that's not the right rock. And so you go away and you come, no, that's still not it. And it's something I've dealt with my whole life, because if I really put, it's just laziness in my part, because if I really put the effort in, I can describe it. And I think that was done very well at the beginning for me, because amazing as it seems, this room is really now pretty much exactly, with the exception of the color of the couch, which I think was red when we started.
Yeah.
It's basically as we wrote it up over a year ago.
Yeah, walking in here, you know, I had obviously seen this room when it was drywalled, but no acoustical treatment had been installed. So I'd only seen this in renderings, and it looks just like it.
It just looks exactly like it. So I think we did a good job with the original design.
Yeah.
And as usual, actually executing against that can be a bit lumpy sometimes. But in the end, it's exactly as we had imagined it, which is fantastic.
I remember we did bring you a couple rocks that weren't it. You know, like in the early phases, it was like, how about this? And it was mostly slight tweaks here and there. And I love that process because, again, we're not designing studios for us, it's for you, you know. And
there are some compromises. I mean, I think the perfect acoustical listening position would be a little bit towards the middle of a room like this, so we compromise a little bit, because let's face it, my ears are pretty old. They're not going to need the perfect acoustical positioning. So, but yeah, I couldn't be happier with this. It's kind of a sanctuary down here. I can come in here and forget all that's going on in the world, which is increasingly a good thing. And you know, there's music in every conceivable way available.
Yeah.
And it's quite inspiring, actually. Definitely come in here and feel creative.
Well, Rod, thanks so much for allowing us to tour your beautiful space. I'm so happy for you seeing it come to fruition, and I just can tell you're going to be spending a lot of time down here having a good creative time.
It'll be difficult to get me out of this room. So thank you for what you did,
Yeah,
Gavin.
thanks so
It's been
much.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.